This video demonstrates how a supervisor can complete an observation form. So as was mentioned in the previous video, the trainee is primarily responsible for their observations and to make sure that they initiate it, but the consultant may also do so. So what usually happens that the trainee would, after they've had an activity observed, they would then send a request using a form, which sends an SMS and an email to the supervisor, which contains links to the observation form that they need to complete. However, the supervisor doesn't need to use this method. They can also access these links directly without the activity request being sent by the trainee. Other ways to find the link is through searching your email inbox for observation links. So every month there will be a email sent out that's got the work-based assessment progress dashboard, which I'll demonstrate at the end of this video. The links will be included there. There'll also be posters with QR codes put up in various parts of the hospitals. The top one is for the trainees to send an observation request. The bottom one is for the supervisors. So if the supervisor holds a camera over each of these and then clicks on the link, it will take them to either an outpatient, an inpatient / acute intake, or a procedural form that can be completed for that trainee's activity. So I'll now demonstrate one of the forms. So we use the procedural form. So the first thing to select is the registrar's name. This one is still in test phase. There's only two, or demonstrative phase. There's only two trainees' names here. Select the year of training, then the rotation that they were in, the date of the observation, which is generally that same day or should be, the procedure that was observed, let's say it was a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, the supervisor who was present, and then comes the part, so that's kind of just setting the giving context to the observation, and then comes the actual observation. And here the supervisor is expected to choose a statement that best describes to what degree they felt the trainee could independently perform each of the components of the procedure. The first part being the surgical plan or strategy based on the interpretation of signs and investigations. And here you can see this in an entrustment scale. So the supervisor would say, I had to do this part, or I had to talk the trainee through this part. I had to prompt them from time to time, which refers to kind of level 2B, which is a form of direct observation. I needed to be there just in case, kind of was hovering in theater, that would be indirect observation. Or I didn't need to be there, meaning I trusted the supervisor, this trainee, to perform this component of the activity without any supervision. In terms of case preparation, positioning the patient, getting the required instruments, anticipating complications, the scale is the same for all the questions, knowledge of the steps and pitfalls. So a trainee may, for example, know all the steps of a procedure, and you wouldn't need to be there for that specifically. But in terms of their technical skill, they don't have a lot of experience, and therefore, you had to really talk them through it. Kind of visuospatial skills, their post-procedure plan that they had for the patient, their economy of movement and overall flow, and finally the communication with the team. Then you have to rate the difficulty rating. So was the procedure the same or a lot more difficult, which obviously affects the rest of the scores and how much the trainee was entrusted to do it on their own. And then this is as opposed to the other entrustment scale, which is retrospective, saying I had to do this, looking back at what needed to be done. This is the kind of more important one, which is the overall assessment of looking to the future prospectively, taking all of the above into account, provide an overall rating of how much supervision the trainee needs the next time they perform this activity. So kind of making a judgment of this is where the trainee is at for the next person who supervises them, and kind of gives a rating of their independence and competence going forward. So level 1 being the trainee should observe only. Level 2, the trainee can do some aspects under guidance, but with the supervisor actively participating, so that would be direct observation. Level 3, the trainee can do most aspects with the supervisor just hovering in the room, so that would be indirect observation. You can see this translates a lot to the scale. However, direct observation here has been split into 2. And level 4, which is what the trainees aim at, this is really can do the activity unsupervised, and they may need advice or assistance if they call for it. And finally, level 5 would be they are so competent that they can supervise others. The last two questions are really important for feedback. So give at least one aspect of the procedure done well and give one suggestion for improvements. This is quite key for the trainees to learn how they can get better, and for the competence committee or the group to see where they're at and what can be done to improve their training. Of course, we also encourage face-to-face feedback with the trainee, but this is another record of kind of a more narrative feedback of their performance. And then finally, that's the end of the observation, and the last part is just for the report to be sent out to the registrar. So the registrar's email address is selected, the consultant who observed the procedures email is selected, and then also it needs to be sent out to the head of that unit, and then optionally to other consultants in the unit, just for them to also have an idea of where the trainee might be at. These last two fields are not compulsory. As soon as submit is clicked, it saves a PDF report into the trainee's portfolio, and it also then sends that PDF report to the other people in the unit. Finally, all of this data is collected and collated on a dashboard, which is sent out monthly to the whole team. This is kind of for everybody to know where the trainees are. So firstly, in the top left-hand corner, one can select a date range, which is often 3 months relating to that specific rotation, but it can be 6 months, can be 1 year, it can be 1 month, and that will affect whatever is displayed in the rest of the table. So this will give, for the procedural EPAs, we'll give a list of the trainees and how many they've done, and also which procedures were done, and the inpatients, outpatients, the same. If one clicks on a specific trainee's name, it will then filter out all the rest of the fields to display only that trainee's details, so one can see that it's so many lab colis in the last whatever time period is specified, so many acute intakes, and so many outpatient observations, and also includes a kind of a count of the overall number of observations performed. So it doesn't give what they got for everything, that's of course confidential, but just shows what was done, allows everyone to keep track. And that's it. Any questions, feel free to get in touch with me.